Today's passage may seem a little minor at first glance, especially the part involving the colt. But hidden within this, there's it's subtle, but a pretty extraordinary truth. And we talked about it a little bit with Amber and Taylor, and that is that God calls ordinary people to release what they have for extraordinary purposes. Jesus tells two of his disciples, go into the village ahead of you. As you enter it, you'll find the colt. Untie it, bring it to me. And then he adds, now, if anybody asks you about that, you just tell them the Lord needs it. Let's pause on that. The Lord needs it. The Lord needs it. Think about that simple statement. Why did Jesus need it? Jesus didn't own a horse. Have you ever owned a horse? Anybody? A few of you. Thank you. Maybe you got one now. Anybody have a horse now? Oh. Well, horses are pretty incredible. They're amazing. My family always had horses. We worked cattle almost every Saturday and Sunday when I was a young boy all the way up until the time I graduated high school. And there were two horses during those years in particular that impacted me, and there was a bond between me and those two, but that bond was really pale in comparison to the bond that I saw between my grandfather, Frank, and his horse, a horse named King. And as my two oldest sons were younger and needing bedtime stories, oftentimes they requested stories without a book, which basically meant that I had to ad-lib something to get them to go to sleep. And so I began to tell them stories that I remembered or things that had happened. And the story of this horse, King, and my grandfather was their favorite. And the short part, or the short, what time was lunch? Okay, I'll make it as short as I can. We were, in this particular case, I was on a horse, but I was about away because there was a particular bull in this pasture that was extremely aggressive. And so the four, me and Dad and my granddaddy and then two of the other guys, were trying to rope this bull so they could pull him in a trailer and get him out of the pasture because he was dangerous. And so three of them got ropes on him, and he had big horns. And Granddaddy was well in front of me where I was, a good distance away, probably 20, 30 yards, when the bull charged my grandfather. And this horse that they had, I guess he had that horse probably for 10 years, reared up in front of the bull and protected my granddaddy. And the bull gored him in the side, and we took him to the vet, and he survived. But I'll never forget that scene of him protecting my grandfather. Horses are just pretty amazing. They can recognize their owners' voices. They can recognize their owners' faces. If you know anything about them, they're incredibly empathetic. They, if you're scared, I had one. This was not one of those two that I enjoyed the most, but one that knew I was scared because it was so big, and it treated me as if I was scared. I held on to the thing, hoping that it would stop a few times. But horses can pick up that emotion in people. It's really amazing, interesting creatures. And they also remember kindness, and they remember mistreatment. Pretty amazing creatures. And they're meant for and bred for greatness. In those days, in biblical days, just like you kind of read that Nancy read in the Zechariah passage, that God said in that prophecy he was going to eliminate the chariots, eliminate those things that were shows of power, because that's what horses were for. The king always rode the best horse in the stable, front and center in the parades and in military advancements. Always the biggest and strongest horse was reserved for the king. But Jesus didn't come as a king like that. At the moment of this triumphal entry, he sends his disciples to borrow a young donkey, an unproven, unbroken, and likely overlooked and not valuable. The owner just let it go. Donkeys are interesting. Donkey foals, unlike many other larger animals when they're born, they can be standing within 10 minutes and walking. They're really pretty fascinating creatures in that regard. They learn to nurse quickly, and they form a bond with their mom, which is called a jenny, for any of those that you're taking notes. but they form a bond that is just really, the donkeys and or foals and jennies stay beside each other all the time until they're old enough to get out on their own. They're gentle, and as you've seen a number of times, most of the time walk with their heads down. They're a picture of humility. They're subservient, and they work. No matter what the task, to their owner, they will do what's asked to do. If you've not experienced that, try to lead a donkey that doesn't know you. You've heard the phrase stubborn as a mule. That's where it comes from. Because if the donkey doesn't know you, then they're not going to do anything for you. It's interesting that Jesus chose a donkey, an unproven one at that, one that had never been ridden, for his triumphant ride into Jerusalem. It seems a little strange, maybe a little illogical, but the truth is, and we all know this, even though I think we forget it sometimes, God's requests don't always come wrapped in logic. They come wrapped in obedience. Imagine being the owner of that donkey, and you see two strangers untying the thing, and this, you own it, and you shout, "Hey, what are you doing?" And their answer is not a long explanation. They didn't go into the lineage of Jesus and why, from a prophetic standpoint, he needed a donkey. It didn't go into all that. He just said, "The Lord needs it." Would that be enough for you if that had been you? Sometimes we make faith pretty complicated, but this story is really pretty simple. God asks, and this fella, or these people, they let go. The donkey's owner had no idea that he was about to play a part in fulfilling a prophecy that was, maybe some 600 years before, that the king would come, righteous and victorious, lowly, and riding on a donkey. He didn't know that the animal that he owned, perhaps something that he had raised and cared for, would carry the King of Kings. But he let it go. Now, can I ask you, and I'll ask myself, what are you holding on to that the Lord needs? Would it be your time, your gifts, your resources, your influence, maybe your forgiveness? It's a valid question. And think about that donkey. Unglamorous, not majestic like a stallion, and yet it was chosen by Jesus to carry him through the streets of Jerusalem. God has a habit of using what the world sees as ordinary and small for extraordinary purposes. He used a shepherd's staff, or as Tony Campolo used to say, a crooked stick to part the Red Sea. He used 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed thousands. He used a teenage girl to bring the Savior of the world into the world. And here he uses a borrowed donkey foal to declare that he is king. So what does that tell us? Well, I think for one thing, you don't need to be impressive. You just need to be available. When the disciples said, "The Lord needs it," that was enough. There's something powerful in how little explanation the disciples give there. They don't try to justify or explain anything. They just say, "The Lord needs it," and that's enough. Because I guess truthfully, when the Lord asks, we can trust that whatever we're being asked for, if we release it, it's going to be multiplied in ways that we cannot imagine. The colt wasn't just borrowed. It became a part of history. And so, what if that question's coming up to you today? What is something in your life that feels tied up? Something you've been holding on to too tightly? A talent, possession, relationship, even a grudge or a hurt? What might it look like to untie that and just give it to God? How do you usually respond when God asks you to let something go or to give something up? Is your first instinct to, okay? Or is it, I don't know about that? Or no, sometimes is the answer. Why do you think the owner of the colt was willing to give that up so willingly without an explanation? How do you get that ability to trust? Have you ever experienced God using something small or ordinary or insignificant in your life for some greater purpose, bigger than what you could have done? And if Jesus walked into your life today and said, I need that, what would you struggle to give up? What does it mean for you to be available? How can we live in such a way that, and with an attitude that says, here it is, Lord, here am I? What would change in your life if you truly believe that even your small offering, even the insignificant things that you have, could carry the message of Christ? So I guess at the end of the day, the question on Palm Sunday as we move through Holy Week, today is a bit of a celebration day. It was for Jesus, although he knew what was coming. As we move through Palm Sunday and Holy Week, what is God asking you to untie? What's he calling you to release? And are you willing to respond to that? The Lord needs it. It might feel small. It might feel like it doesn't matter, whatever it might be. But in God's hands, it can carry a king. It can carry the presence of the living God. And whatever it is that God is asking you to let go and to untie and give might unburden you, and maybe some of those that you love as well. Thanks be to God.